And those two groups are the Calgary Women's Emergency Shelter, and the other one is the Calgary Food Bank. And both of these organizations have received support from us in the last year. And we thought it would be a great opportunity to bring them forward and talk a little bit about what's happened with their organizations and how Rotary has been involved to help them with their specific needs. So I think I've got Veronica coming up first. So Bill, if you wouldn't mind letting, and Veronica Lawrence is with the Calgary Women's Emergency Shelter. And as you guys know, earlier this year, we did present a $5,000 donation towards the Calgary Women's Shelter. And we thought we'd give Veronica a chance to talk a little bit about what's going on with their organization.
You're unmuted, Veronica.
Oh, great. Hi. Yeah, so I have to say that picture is a great picture. The person in that picture is unfortunately not me. So we were lucky to have, well, and that's because we were lucky to have you available, Marvin, to come and present on TV during our Toy Mountain campaign with CTV at Christmas time, to present that check that you all generously donated to support the building of some security fencing for the outdoor parking lot at our shelter. So that picture is really a great reminder of that day, because yeah, it was very moving to get that support from your club. So thank you very much for the support you've already provided. It really does mean a lot. Unfortunately, the fencing hasn't been built yet, as it was set to be built this month. But as you can imagine, a number of different construction things are not happening right now. So as soon as we're able to get construction going back up again, we'll be able to get that fence built at the shelter. All of that aside, thank you very much for inviting me to be here. I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to speak to you about what's happening at the shelter, because we are one of the agencies that has been classified an essential service. And so we have continued to stay open, and we continue to serve clients at this time. It's affected us in a few different ways. So one of which is that some of our programs had to sort of be reconfigured. We do have a court program which had to be reconfigured, as well as the work that we do in the high schools and junior high schools had to be reconfigured, just because they're not open. And so we've been serving clients over the phone and over Zoom meetings for those programs, which we hadn't previously been doing. We were typically doing face-to-face there. But beyond those sort of changes, we've had to redeploy some of the staff from those programs to other areas of the agency, because of course we are just swamped. So as you can imagine, we do know that there's been a major increase in domestic violence nationwide. It's certainly not Alberta or Calgary specific. Some of the stats are starting to come out on that. I know Statistics Canada recently did a survey, I think about 2 weeks ago, where it said that 10% of Canadian women are very or extremely concerned about violence in the home right now, specifically relating to COVID. So I think we know that that's happening. We know it's happening out in our community as well, and we're certainly seeing it at the shelter. Our shelter is currently full. So we do have all of our rooms full, which isn't extraordinary for us because it's nearly always full. But at this time, it's somewhat surprising, because we had concerns that we weren't going to be able to serve some of the women that would need the shelter, because they wouldn't be able to actually find the opportunity to leave their homes. And so we are somewhat surprised that we are full, but we are happy to be able to serve the women that do need that service. Beyond that, we have increased our capacity through our helpline. So previously we just had the phone where people could reach us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at the crisis helpline. And we have seen an increase there. But what we've also done is we've introduced text and email counseling. So we are now offering therapeutic support for women, children, youths, men who need it through text and through email, just because if you're at home with the person who is harming you and you're not really able to leave that space, it can be quite difficult to get on the phone and talk to someone about that. So we wanted to introduce some silent counseling opportunities so that even if they're not speaking aloud about it, they are still sharing what's going on and seeking that support. In terms of social distancing, so I see this question from David, so thank you for that question. In terms of social distancing, so what we're doing is we're actually doing a number of different counseling opportunities, even within the shelter, via Zoom meetings or via phone calls with the clients that are actually in the shelter, so that they're not coming into that immediate contact with their counselor and they are maintaining that social distance there. Beyond that, we are speaking with the parents. So for moms in the shelter, if they have kids that are with them, we are in the process of providing iPads and things like that to those kids, so that while their mom is receiving counseling, they're not sort of running through the hallways and potentially coming into contact with other clients who are in the hallways at the same time. We are also working with all of our clients, both in the emergency shelter and in our community counseling, to be able to provide laptops and devices to their kids, because a number of our clients have children who don't have access to laptops or iPads or anything like that to be able to continue their schoolwork. So we are coordinating with some of our donors in the community to try and make that happen for all of the kids that need it. Last I heard, that need was sitting at around about 50 different kids who needed access to devices. And so I think like really what's happening for us is we're seeing an increase in demand through that helpline, and then through our men's counseling and our community counseling. So men's counseling was surprisingly the program that experienced the most increase in demand the fastest. So those first, 1 to 3 weeks that everyone was home and doing the social distancing thing and working from home, we really experienced quite a spike in men who were calling us seeking help to try and deal with some of their concerns about their own violent or abusive behavior, which is comforting for me as a person who sees these trends and watches all this happening, because it means that the message is getting out that we're able to provide that help. And it is encouraging because it means that men are reaching out to get that help. So I think that was something that we saw in those early days, and it's really now that we're seeing the increase in the community counseling demand and the helpline. Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of the bulk of the big ways it's really impacted us. Even before COVID, we saw that some of our numbers in specific areas were increasing anyways, and have been doing so for quite some time. So it's difficult to really navigate how much of it is specifically COVID related and how much of it was just the general increase we've been seeing over time. And I think that difference will become clear in the coming months, because it's really difficult to sort of navigate how it's all shaking out at this point. Thank you for this question. So opportunities to directly help out. If any of you do happen to have laptops or iPads or those kinds of devices at home that maybe they're a couple years old and you're not using them anymore, if you're able to wipe those and have them become blank and donate them to us, I'd welcome you to get in touch with me for that. Because as I say, we do still have that demand for kids who are needing those devices to be able to turn in their schoolwork and continue their education at home. Beyond that, I think we're not really able to have volunteer opportunities at this time. And even in terms of receiving donations of basic essentials, we've stopped that just to try and follow some quite strict protocols in terms of COVID. We're very fortunate that we haven't had a case at the shelter, and we're continuing to follow those protocols to try and make sure that that doesn't happen. But we do know that it is a possibility, and we do have protocols in place to contend with that if that's something that does come to the shelter, but we're fortunate that that hasn't happened yet. Bill's is not a question, it is a comment, so that's okay. I just want to make sure I'm addressing everyone's questions and comments as we go along here. Yeah, I mean, I think we're still, the text and email lines that we started at, that came into place 2 weeks ago or so. Just getting the technology in place and training all of our clinical team onto that takes a little bit of time. And so now that we've got that up and running, it seems to be going quite well. The first week we weren't getting a lot of attention to it, but then it hit the press that we were doing it, and we've gotten the word out with some of our different community partners, so places like Co-op and Shoppers and other organizations that are spreading the word for us as well. And so now we are seeing people start to use those silent counseling options. My email address. So I think everyone can see this. So I'm just going to type my email address into the chat here so that everyone has it if they need it, and anyone can just grab it off of there. Yeah, I feel like I've been talking for a long time. I'm sorry. I know you have another guest as well. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but
All right.
yeah.
Perfect. So what we'll do, thank you, Veronica, very much for that update. And yeah, certainly reach out to me. I have Veronica's email as well if you guys need it from me afterwards. Veronica, if you're able to, we'll, if you want to stick around for about till the end and answer some more questions then. But let's maybe give Leah a chance to jump in now and get a quick update on the food bank.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you very much for having me. I will stick around to the end of the meeting. That's not a problem for me. I'm happy
Thanks,
to stay.
Veronica.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so it's my turn. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. I do have a presentation, but if you prefer this screen, we can stay on it. What's everybody's preference?
So why don't you bring up your own slides then,
Go
Leah?
ahead.
Okay, I'm going to try this. We'll see if it, see if this will work. Hold on. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
wonderful. So we'll try to do our best here. So just a brief little overview for those of you who aren't familiar with the food bank. We are the Calgary's main charitable food hub and the first line of support for anyone facing a food emergency. So typically people come to us, they call in, they say, you know, we're in a bad situation, we don't have enough food. We do some work with them, figure out really what the issues are in the home, and then we get them food, as well as try and help support them with other types of agencies and resources. So our emergency food hampers are what we typically give. They're more than a week's worth of nutritious food to Calgarians who are struggling. With the new COVID crisis, what we had to do is we had to shut down for 2 days to assess how we could be most valuable to the Calgary community. In that 2-day shutdown, we revamped how our hampers were handled, and we also had to start putting in place strict social distancing protocols. So what that really looked like for our hampers is that we reduced hamper size to a 4 to 5 day amount instead of a 7 to 10 day amount. They included essentials such as milk, eggs, and non-perishables, but we did have to wait a week until we could add meat and produce as well. And part of the reason for that is a lot of you who are volunteers know is we take a lot of pride in our volunteers helping us sort food, and we weren't able to do that properly or efficiently when we had to reduce our volunteer numbers. So that's why the hampers changed a little bit in the way they were. Now we also are doing a drive-through hamper, which means people drive up, they give us their name, we already have them in the system, and when we confirm that they're there to pick up their hamper, our lovely volunteers take their cart out to their car and place all the food into their vehicle. We never ask them to get out of the vehicle, just to help with that social distancing, and it keeps our volunteers safe as well. And sorry, if there are some comments coming in, I can just check here really quick. Okay, Garfield, I'm not certain when we will allow seniors to help out again. I think it's going to be based on Alberta Health's recommendations at this time. So I do apologize, I don't have a good answer for that. And get rid of that. All right. So volunteers, as many of you know, we have had to reduce the amount of volunteers in our building. And the reason for that is because of the need to protect everybody. So anyone who is considered a senior is at a higher risk to get COVID, and we didn't want to be giving that to anyone. So what we've asked is people over 65 to not be in the building. And as well, for people who are volunteering, we've had to reduce our numbers so that we can socially separate better. So volunteering during COVID, this is kind of, if you guys can see this photo here, I don't know, but this is kind of the setup now. Sorting has really changed and there's a lot more spacing. Whereas before, if you were on the sorting line, you'd be right next to somebody else. Now you have to be 2 or 3 down the row from them. We have limited the amount of shifts that are available, which is why fresh foods and meat have been trickier to handle. We went from an average of 343 shifts a day to 124 shifts a day. We also have said people have to be unique volunteers. So many of you may have in the past volunteered for a shift in the sorting area and then come back that same day or stayed on to do a different shift, maybe in distribution or in fresh foods. Now we're asking everybody to only volunteer once per week, and that is to allow us to assess if you develop symptoms to make sure that we're not passing that on to somebody else. We are fortunate to say right now there have been absolutely no cases of COVID in our building, and all of our staff are fully on site and functional, so we're very proud of that fact. Now, in terms of hampers, our wish list remains the same. We haven't changed it, but what we are doing is we're sourcing the food a bit differently. So even though the wish list remains the same, we have asked that donors drop off their donations at their nearest grocery store. We still have our drivers going and doing pickup, but that helps us eliminate the risk to the building by not having donors come straight to our doors. So now we've asked Calgary to, when you're shopping at the grocery store, if you can drop a can in to the bin at the front, that would help us immensely. All right, and then part of that with the dropping of the food and the changes in the donation is we've actually had to leverage our purchasing power more. So we're spending a bit more of donor dollars on the food we need in the building on the most critical food items. So what that means is we need to sometimes go out and buy eggs. So we're going to make sure we're always purchasing that. If we're low on pasta, we're going to go purchase that. Now, the only change to the purchasing power is just the amount that we've had to put out recently, because we can't sort the food fast enough that's actually being donated, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Food Link. Those of you who know, we still do provide quality bulk food to charitable organizations in the Calgary area. Has changed a little bit. We're working with a limited number of agencies, those that have certified industrial kitchens. And that's, again, for safety's sake and for the safety of all the charities as well as us. And the charities will call in before they come in. They'll place an order, and then we'll use the drive-through pickup model for them. So we'll still deliver the food out to their vehicle. So you can see in this photo here to the right, the drop-in center came in, they told us what they needed, and we loaded their van with all of that food. So we are still trying to support the community as best we can so that those organizations can just run their programming and not have to worry about where their food's coming from. So how you can help. It's very much similar to the ways it was before. We're asking that you can either donate food to your local grocery store or you can donate funds to us. If you are in the mood and you're stuck at home and you would like to grow a row for us, it's a fun little term, over the summer and do some root vegetables, you're always more than welcome to donate those fresh produce to us as well at the end of the summer. But we are just relying on everybody's generosity at this time to get us through this critical process, and understanding that unfortunately we can't accept your time if you're over the age of 65, but we still would love to accept your foods or funds. One thing to note is that every dollar that you donate still does help us distribute $5 worth of food. So we still are able to leverage that buying power and make sure our dollar stretches and we can help the most people. Another thing that's an option, if anybody's looking to help us, is they can host an event for us. And what that looks like right now is more virtual. So some people are doing virtual fundraisers online, or they're doing food drives and they're having their friends drop off the food to their door, or they're picking up at a safe 6-foot distance, and then they're calling us and we're gonna do a dispatch and pick up all your food. So let's say Bill wants to do a food drive and he says to all of you, hey guys, drop off your non-perishables to my house, food bank's gonna pick up in 3 days. you guys could do that. We are still hosting those types of events. That being said, any public type of event we have had to cancel. So Friends Helping Friends is a big food drive with Safeway Sobeys. We unfortunately had to cancel that. That was worth about $500,000 in foods and funds to us. So a big hit there. In 2 weeks, it was supposed to be our diaper drive for babies. We do have to cancel that diaper drive. So if you have loved ones in your home who have half open packages of diapers, they can also donate those to our bins at the front of stores. We are accepting anything of that nature. Now let me just check the chat. I lost it, here we go. Let's see if I can get you guys some answers to your questions. Okay, so a change to the food. Now, we have seen Calgary still be quite generous in terms of their food donations, but as I stated, just due to the lack of volunteers, we aren't able to sort it as fast. So what's happening is we still are trying to hold as much non-perishable food items for a few days to make sure that there are no COVID germs on them, and then we try to get them into sorting and sort them. That being said, right now we are leveraging those cash donations more because we can purchase what we need in the quantities we need without having to separate them. I hope that kind of makes sense, Darren. And yes, so perishables can be, Judy, a host your own party item. However, what we'd want to do is work with you for the delivery of those items, just to make sure when we get them, we're putting them straight into the distribution area. It is hard for us to sort or to keep those separate if we don't know ahead of time. So I would just say, have a very open dialogue with whomever you're working with to pick up your items. And, direct drop-offs. Darren, currently we're trying to figure out from Alberta Health, as well as the city's emergency response team, how we can safely do this without liabilities to us or our volunteers. So as you can imagine, going into clients' homes or going near clients' homes can be a challenge with COVID, but also we want to make sure that safety is first and paramount. So I know that our awesome fearless leader, James, is looking into how that could work, and we can send you more information in the future once we do have some answers about dropping off food to clients. We are still working with our third-party Care Connect, and they have certain clients they serve, and they're able to drop off food to them. So that tackles a bit of the transport challenges. We also have reopened a few of the depots that we deliver to. So no longer do people have to always come into the southeast. There are 4 depots that I'm familiar with that are open at this time, and people can access those throughout the city. Are we getting federal support? Okay, Alex, so great question. Yes, and it's an interesting way of saying this. The federal government has offered support to Food Banks Canada. We are a part of Food Banks Canada, so through a trickle-down effect, we will be receiving support through the federal government. What that looks like, the piece of the pie we're going to get, we are not yet familiar with that. So that is something James is working on with Food Banks Canada. He would like to see the amount of people that we represent also represented in those funds given. So, however many hampers we give out or how many people we support, that's the amount that we would be asking for back from Food Banks Canada, but that hasn't been confirmed just yet. So I think that's those questions. I see some private questions, so I'll write them back. Yes, we have relaxed the number of visits a family can have, like the number of hampers. So right now, currently with our system, as we have it the 4 to 5 days, they can apply every 17 days. In the past, they had to wait 30 days. And so when we recognized that our hampers were smaller and that times have gotten tougher, we did relax the amount. And we can still work with clients through other agencies as well, and they can be suggested or, referred to us still in this time of need. Now, one thing to note is the food bank does recognize that we are here for the long term, and even if COVID goes away in May, June, July, the effects that are happening to our city right now are going to have long-term consequences. And we are going to need to be here for people who are out of work and do not have food for years to come. So we're trying to be strategic with the money we receive and the supports we get to play that long game so that we're always here for people.
Great. I think that